Good afternoon, Mark Stott with HurricaneTrack.com here with your hurricane outlook and discussion for Thursday, August 3rd, 2017. We have a full plate today. Let's start off with what's happening in the Sea Surface Temperature Anomalies Department. The Atlantic Main Development Region still very warm compared to average, and that extends up through the Caribbean and into the Gulf of Mexico. Off the east coast of the United States, especially the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast in particular, water temperatures have cooled down quite a bit from what we saw recently due to this upper level trough sitting over the area and the general unsettled weather, and it has been wetter over the east, especially the southeast. Lots of rain and storminess, and that has contributed to quite a bit of a cool down along this area, and that'll persist until we switch the pattern and get more of an easterly wind flow to push some of that warmer water back towards the west. In the Pacific, no chance of El Nino, obviously, but if we look at this, this is the first time we've seen some of these blues really showing up like this, especially out in the Nino 3.4 area. Maybe we're heading towards weak La Nina conditions to end 2017. Not really any point in speculating about it, but it's interesting to see where we are now compared to where some of the computer modeling suggested we might be by this time, and that computer modeling was dead wrong, and we have almost now cool neutral conditions, not just neutral or warmer than neutral by a little bit, but a little bit colder than neutral. But whatever, it's set the stage now. We're in August, the next 90 days or so. This is what really matters to me, the very warm water compared to average in the Atlantic Basin. All right, looking at the upper ocean heat content, this continues to expand as you would expect it would throughout most of the Atlantic Basin now, in the reach of tropical activity anyway. The northern extent of the detectable upper ocean heat content, kind of outlining it here for you. There's other parts of the ocean that are warm enough for tropical development, but this is the area where the upper ocean heat content is just a little bit higher, and then a little bit higher than that here, and a lot higher over the Northwest Caribbean. And so this is really no surprise, nothing real different than we've seen on a dramatic scale anyway from past years. The Atlantic, once we get to August, is usually ready for tropical activity to commence. That being said, I want to take you back to July 25th, and Dr. Michael Ventris from WSI had this to say about this very strong convectively coupled atmospheric Kelvin wave was forecast to pass the Atlantic when? The first week of August. This was issued on the July 25th at around 6 in the morning or something like that. Watch for MDR, main development, tropical cyclone outbreak the 8th through the 20th. It looks like maybe it'll be a little bit ahead of that schedule. But kudos, right? This guy's a PhD. He knows what he's talking about. Again, nothing is ever a certainty. And like I have said, just because it's forecast to possibly happen, or maybe mentioned, even a forecast could be wrong, for goodness sakes. But this is pretty remarkable that we are able to see this coming that far out in advance. And lo and behold, what do we have out there? This is from today. And look, the Kelvin wave is right over here. And it's definitely enhancing the convection. And it's even still making what we have, and I'm going to talk about this in a moment, in the Eastern Caribbean start to flare up. So hats off to Dr. Ventris. Well done. And giving credit where credit is due, and really looking at the technology that we can see this stuff far enough out in time to get ready for it. Just to be aware. That's all we are asking people to do, is be more aware in this era of 24-hour or less. Sometimes it's 6-hour news cycles, it seems, and alternative facts and whatever. At least here the science is staying stable, and so I wanted to just point that out. This is important, and you got to do this kind of stuff. You pioneer the research to look ahead, and maybe one day we will know 2 weeks out where a hurricane might be headed. You got to start somewhere. So the tropical weather outlook just updated here, 2 p.m. Eastern time. I'm recording this about 10 minutes before 2 Eastern time, and we have 30%, 70% over the eastern Atlantic with the vigorous tropical wave, and then a new area 10% 48 hours, 20% 120 hours, regarding a strong tropical wave over the southeastern Caribbean Sea. And if we go back to the graphic, this should have updated as well. We can see high chance of development here in the eastern Atlantic. There it is, outlined nicely. And now we have a low chance of development right now. It's just getting started, so we'll see. Headed towards the Caribbean, through the Caribbean, the Yucatan Peninsula, and maybe the Gulf of Mexico. So you bet it is going to be a very busy time around here for the foreseeable future. And that convectively coupled Kelvin wave that moved its way out of the Pacific here and across the Atlantic Basin, and is doing its work across this region, partially responsible for helping to kick things off. And so there you go. You know, we talked about it was coming, and here it is. It's now starting to show up. So let's take a look at these piece by piece. This is the area in the eastern Atlantic now formally known as Invest Area 99L. And for those of you new to this whole thing or have ever wondered what that means, to describe it as briefly as possible here, instead of just saying a tropical wave here, or a tropical wave here, or a group of clouds here, or whatever, just like we name tropical storms and hurricanes to keep up with which is which, the areas of interest, when they reach a certain threshold, and that's kind of a gray area, they get a number, 90 through 99, and the letter L for Atlantic. If it's in the Eastern Pacific, it would be E. Actually, it's EP for Eastern Pacific, and AL for Atlantic. But we in the weather world, the hurricane blogosphere, whatever you want to call us, we just shorten it to 99L. So we've already had 98, or not 98, but we've had 90 through 98 already, and now we're up to 99. And it's just recycles 90 through 99 over and over again. And it's just a way to sort of start the process. And you say, okay, instead of just a tropical wave, this is now 99L, or Invest 99L, and we can assign, we being the weather community, satellite floater images to zoom in on it, computer models focused in on it, and it designates it as the starting point that something might happen. So we call this Invest Area of Investigation 99L. So that being said, what do we see? Well, it's got a huge area of energy associated with it and moisture content. The Saharan air layer is not nearly as prevalent. You don't see it showing up very well in the satellite imagery, and what little there is up here, and up here almost to the Iberian Peninsula and off the coast of Morocco, for goodness sakes, and the Canary Islands. I mean, it's just, the pot is starting to boil. That's what we talk about, a watch pot never boils. Well, of course it eventually does, and in this case we're starting to see this percolate. Really good interaction with the monsoon trough down here, and everything's going to come together for this to very likely, 70% chance now according to the National Hurricane Center, to go on and develop. And then over Africa, this system coming off of the Ethiopian highlands a few days ago, and look, it's starting to blossom even more, and this too will make it into the Atlantic Basin as all of this activity starts to really perk up. So if we look at the wide shot, now Invest Area 99L, not quite in the picture yet. It'll get there in a couple of days. And this is the other system. This will eventually be 90L, because we'll start over again, remember? And this has to be watched. The European ECMWF was very aggressive with this developing and then becoming probably a hurricane in here somewhere, not only in the operational run, but in what we call the Ensemble Prediction Center system, where you have 50 additional runs with slightly different variables to give you different outputs. It's kind of like, well, what if we change this and we change that, then let's see what happens. And so they run that model over and over and over again, and the overall guidance was showing a pretty good risk of development through this area, and maybe even up towards the Northwest Gulf. It all depends on how strong the system would be and what the pattern over North America would be at the time. So for now, certainly this is passing through portions of the Lesser Antilles, and so you've got some shower and thunderstorm activity. You don't need me to tell you that. You're experiencing it. Coming in through Trinidad and Tobago, the southeasterly flow coming in, and then just this general, I mean, you can almost detect a little bit of turning with this, a broad area of turning with this system. And once it gets over here to this much warmer water, we'll have to watch and see what happens. So this is the second area to watch, in addition, of course, to 99L. So speaking of that one, 99, this is the energy, the vorticity. And I'm going to bring this out every day now and show you how this evolves. Right now, it's still rather linear, but it's going to eventually look more and more round as it bundles the energy that it is formulating right now and trying to gather. This will change its shape and it'll become more round in nature. This is the one over interior Africa. Already has a good bit of energy with it. And I want to point out something of note, that the models, and in fact I'll show you this in just a moment. I'll just shut up and show you when I get to it. I don't have a model plot to show you. It's too early. We'll look at the GFS, but the other models, what we call the spaghetti models, it's absolutely pointless at this point in the game, so to speak. I hate calling it a game, but you get the idea. All right, so the upper level winds for our two areas, generally anticyclonic flow. You can see that kind of spiraling away in a clockwise fashion over what's eventually going to be presumably 90L. Pretty good band of westerlies still cutting through here, but this will probably, you see this sort of tilted way of the atmosphere, this remnants of the tropical upper tropospheric trough. This will probably break away and change, and will allow 99L that's coming in here a better ventilation system. But for now, pretty strong westerlies. And by the way, I didn't mention it. Let's go back to the satellite picture. Where are you? There you are. This would be the leftovers of Nicole, believe it or not. Nicole? Man. Emily. At least I caught myself, right? It's worse when you just keep saying it or you didn't catch yourself. The leftovers of Emily, and that's Bermuda, so a little storminess for Bermuda. But you know what? They get all of their fresh water from rain. Obviously, the Atlantic Ocean is salty, so anytime you can get some rain without it being 100 mile per hour wind, take it. And so it might be kind of yucky in Bermuda today as the leftovers of Emily pass by, but at least you get the rainfall. So anyway, the upper level winds, not too bad overall through the Caribbean here, especially farther to the west. All green through there, so we got to watch this system moving through the eastern Caribbean closely. Now this is what I wanted to show you right here. This is what we call the scatterometer pass, and you might be like, what in the world are we looking at here? So what I want to do is I want to zoom in, and I'm going to show you. So this is a satellite that basically uses fancy equipment to figure out the wind speed along or just above the surface of the Earth. And you can clearly see counterclockwise rotation, and it ends about right there. And so we don't have a map in the background, but this is just off the coast of Africa. The satellite presumably was moving this way, but maybe it was moving from north to south. I honestly don't know. But the bottom line is, here's your rotation associated with that vigorous tropical wave. You can see it bringing the energy into itself here very clearly. And look at where it's located. That is 8 degrees north latitude, and then 10 degrees is up here. So it's fairly far to the south, and that's important because, and I think thought I pulled up a wide shot in here somewhere. Nope, we'll get to that. That's important because, let's use this. Being at a low latitude like this, and there it is in there, we'll have to see, certainly questions for folks in the Lesser Antilles down the road. The lower the latitude, obviously the better the chance it has to interacting with land farther to the west. And so that's interesting that it has come off and developing this low-level center, as we can see in this scatterometer shot, that it's pretty low in latitude. And some of these black wind barbs in here, those might be contaminated with precipitation, so they're not entirely accurate. They get flagged by the algorithm. But the rest of these, not very strong overall. Some blues in here, 10 to 15 knots. So it's not very strong, but this too will change over time as this moves off to the west. So again, first up in terms of interest, clearly the Lesser Antilles, which is over here. And so what we're going to do, we're going to look at the next 5 days of the GFS, the 12Z run. That would mean it was initialized at 12Z today, or 8 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 Zulu Time, or 12 UTC. We'll try to get rid of that. And so let me point out what's what. All right, so here's the west coast of Africa right here. And this is the area of energy that we're going to watch. And then over here we have the east coast of the U.S. There's Florida, etc. Outline Central America. And then I want to point out a few other things. Notice we don't have this giant oval of high pressure sitting out over the Atlantic. It's kind of discombobulated a little bit. It's not quite as prevalent. You see it's got dents and curves, and it's kind of beat down a little bit. It almost looks like a shark. See, you could draw an eye there and a scary mouth. See the dorsal fin, tail fin over here. Fun with graphics, right, with the GFS maps. But my point is, we've lost that huge, dominating, almost suffocating, huge ridge of high pressure, and it morphs. I mean, it grows, it waxes, it wanes. And so that's important because, first of all, it's not going to slingshot 99L here to the west at 20 knots. And secondly, it's going to have a lot to do with the steering. If it was very strong right over here, and much more defined, and we had more of these what we call height lines, then this would go on a more westerly path and could be a problem for the Lesser Antilles. I'm not saying it's not going to be a problem, but it's too early to tell. So those are your players. Let me just outline it one more time. Watch this area of energy here, and there really isn't anything being picked up over here by the GFS yet, so this is not going to be very helpful. So pay attention to this and watch what happens over the next 5 days. I put this into motion, and here we go. So there's that energy. It gathers itself fairly quickly, a couple of competing vorticity centers, but it comes together pretty quickly, and you notice it starts to get that rounded shape in the model, and we are out at about 48 hours here, and it's moving along at a fairly low latitude still, but you notice we do have this sort of broken up looking high pressure area over the Atlantic. It's not a huge round shape to it or oval shape, and so this is not going to move very fast, and it's probably going to gain some latitude over the next 5 days, meaning that it'll move more north than it does west with time. And if we put this really fast, you can see how this evolves. And so it's really important too to notice, you got sort of this broken area in the ridge. The ridge is just a little bit thinner through here, and so that allows this to gain a little bit of latitude. Does this actually happen? Well, we'll have to wait and see. There are obviously no weather balloons being launched over the open Atlantic, so we have to rely on ship data at the surface. There is no upper air data except what we gather from satellite analysis, and so we'll have to see. The farther south this tracks early, the more threat it could be to the Lesser Antilles. So it's going to have to be something we simply wait and see about. You know the drill. It's so early, we're going to have to just wait. And then in terms of any impact to the United States, there's no way that I could even begin to speculate. The only obvious thing to point out is, first, if this develops, where is it when it gets into the southwest Atlantic, and what's happening over North America in terms of trophiness, and then what's happening with the Bermuda Azores high over the Atlantic. And we are still at least a week to 10 days before we get any clues to the answer to that riddle. All right, so that's what I'm talking about. It's going to be a long week to 10 days ahead for sure. Hey, I want to point this out in the Western Pacific. Typhoon Noru, whatever, heading, it's pretty ugly looking as far as the classic structure goes. It looks very strange. Kind of looks like maybe a puffin head. Like there's the eye. You're going to be like, Mark, what's up with the animals today? I don't know. It's just what it looks like. Art in clouds, but pretty large eye, moving over much warmer water in this area, so it's likely to intensify quite a bit, headed towards the island. Remember, Japan is made up of a bunch of islands, and this is Kyushu here, and Nagasaki's over here somewhere. Tokyo is farther to the north up here, and so the track, well, let's just go to the track, shall we? Indicating that this turns northeast over time and coming right into southwest Kyushu over the next couple of days, and the wind speeds don't get above 85 knots. So the GFS idea that this goes to sub 900 millibars looks like it's going to be wrong, despite the very warm water. Now, I think, just based on logic, that we will see higher winds than what this is forecasting here from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, mainly because it's going to be moving over much warmer upper ocean heat content, and that's just usually what happens when they do. And again, doesn't mean that it has to happen, but my gut tells me, especially if the center of circulation here, the eye, starts to contract, and it looks like it's getting ready to, and build that central dense overcast in a more rounded shape, that this could intensify more than just the 85 knots that's shown in the forecast as it turns generally like that, heading towards Kyushu over the next few days. So we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll see who's covering it. Maybe Josh Morgerman will head out there. I haven't heard yet. James Reynolds lives out there. He chases typhoons. To me, chases, I don't know, tracks them and intercepts them. That's a better way to put it, in my opinion. All right, well, this was lengthy, but we had a lot to talk about, and we're going to have a lot to talk about over the next several days. And eventually, we're probably going to get to the point where I'm going to be doing 1, 2, 3, 4 of these a day. Not all of them are going to be this long, thank goodness. That would become boring quickly, but there will be updates that can be made better with video than me trying to type up a 600 or 700 word blog. If a picture's worth 1,000 words, video is the entire book, right? So stay tuned. Interesting times ahead. It's still just early August. Tomorrow, an update from Colorado State University's Phil Klotzbach. Dr. Klotzbach will issue the final outlook, if you will, in terms of the overall thoughts of the season, plus a 2-week outlook, as he will start doing every couple of weeks through the mean part of the season here. And the main part, whatever, it could be mean. You never know. And so it's really going to be crazy busy, but that's what we do, is discuss all the stuff and see where the chips fall. All right? That's it. I'm done for today. Thanks for tuning in. As always, I am Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com. I'll be back with more for you tomorrow.